Hey everyone, Noir here. Let's get into today's Reddit story. Today's story is about Emma. Emma always believed that helping family was the right thing to do. She never imagined that one favor would completely change her life. 5 years ago, her younger brother Jason knocked on her apartment door with the biggest smile she'd ever seen. He had what he called the next billion-dollar app. Jason had the idea, but that was about it. He didn't know how to design an app. He didn't know how to pitch investors. He didn't even know where to begin. Emma, on the other hand, was a senior UX designer. She had spent nearly 10 years designing products for some of the biggest tech companies in Chicago. She understood user experience, branding, customer psychology, everything Jason didn't. Their parents were immediately excited. Mom couldn't stop talking about how Jason was finally going to become successful. Dad kept calling him the future CEO. Then they all turned to Emma. "Can you help him get started?" It sounded simple. Emma smiled and said yes. She thought she'd spend a weekend giving him some advice. She couldn't have been more wrong. One weekend became 1 month. 1 month became almost 2 years. Emma designed every screen of the app. She created the logo, picked the colors, built the brand identity, prepared presentations for investors, even wrote the scripts Jason used during meetings. Meanwhile, Jason became the face of the company. He gave interviews, posted motivational videos online, talked about his vision. Whenever reporters asked how he'd built such an amazing product, he smiled and said, "I worked day and night to make this happen." Emma watched every interview. Not once did he mention her name. At family dinners, their parents couldn't stop praising Jason. "Our son is changing the tech industry. Our son is a genius." Emma would quietly smile. She told herself it didn't matter. The company was growing. Surely. One day they'd recognize everything she'd done. She had no idea. Her family had already decided who deserved the credit, and that decision would cost her far more than she could ever imagine. Emma didn't realize how much of herself she had poured into the app until it finally launched. The first week was quiet, a few thousand downloads, some positive reviews, nothing extraordinary. Then a popular tech influencer featured the app in a video. Everything changed overnight. Downloads exploded. Investors started calling. Tech blogs wrote articles about Jason's brilliant startup. Emma smiled when she saw the headlines. She assumed the next interview would finally mention the team behind the product. It never happened. Every article showed Jason standing alone. Every podcast introduced him as a self-made entrepreneur. At first, Emma ignored it. She told herself the company was still young. There would be plenty of opportunities later. But those opportunities never came. One afternoon, Jason invited the entire family to celebrate. He had good news. Everyone gathered at their parents' house. Champagne was already waiting on the table. Jason couldn't stop smiling. "We just got an acquisition offer." Mom gasped. Dad nearly spilled his drink. "How much?" Jason looked around the room before answering. $14 million. The house erupted with excitement. Mom hugged Jason. Dad called him the smartest person in the family. Emma stood there smiling. She wasn't thinking about the money. She was thinking about the future. She believed this meant years of hard work had finally paid off. Then Jason looked at her. "We'll always remember how much you helped." Helped. That single word didn't sit right with her. She had designed almost everything. Without her, there wouldn't have been a product to sell. Still, she stayed quiet. A few weeks later, Jason asked her to stop by the office. "I just need you to sign a few documents before the deal closes." Emma didn't think twice. She trusted her brother. She walked into the conference room. 3 lawyers were already waiting. Jason slid a folder across the table. "Just standard paperwork." Emma opened the first page, then the second, then the third. Her smile slowly disappeared. Every document described her as an independent contractor, not a co-founder, not a partner, not even an employee, just someone who had provided design services. Emma looked up. There has to be a mistake. Jason didn't even flinch. There isn't. She stared at him in disbelief. What about everything I built? Jason calmly folded his hands. You were helping me. Emma felt her stomach drop. That wasn't just Jason talking. Those were the exact words their parents had been repeating for years. She looked toward Mom and Dad. Neither of them said a word. Instead, Dad quietly nodded, as if this was completely normal. That was the moment Emma realized this hadn't been Jason's decision alone. Her entire family had planned it together. Emma closed the folder. Then she slowly pushed it back across the table. I'm not signing this. The room fell silent. Jason sighed. Emma, don't make this harder than it has to be. She looked directly at him. Harder? I spent 2 years building this app. Jason shrugged. And I came up with the idea. Emma almost laughed. You came up with an idea. I built the product. Mom finally spoke. Sweetheart, your family. This isn't about contracts. Emma looked at her. No, it's exactly about contracts. Dad leaned forward. Don't ruin this deal over money. Emma couldn't believe what she was hearing. Money? You think this is about money? I just want to be recognized for what I built. Jason crossed his arms. You've already been recognized. You got experience. Emma stared at him. Experience. That's what 2 years of unpaid work was worth to him. She stood up. I'm leaving. Dad's voice turned cold. If you walk out that door, don't expect to be part of this family anymore. Emma froze for a second. Then she opened the door. Without looking back, she walked out. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept replaying every conversation, every late night, every weekend she sacrificed, every promise her family had made. Around 2 in the morning, she opened her old laptop. She wasn't looking for revenge, she was looking for closure. She started opening old project folders, design files, emails, investor presentations, prototype versions. Then, she found something she had completely forgotten about. The original design agreement, signed 2 years earlier. Jason had signed it himself. Emma's heart started racing. One sentence immediately caught her attention. All original interface designs and creative assets remain the intellectual property of Emma Carter unless transferred in writing. She read it again, then a third time. There was no transfer agreement, no assignment, nothing. Legally, she still owned every design she had created, including the interface the company was about to sell for $14 million. For the first time in weeks, Emma smiled, not because she wanted revenge, but because she finally had something her family couldn't ignore. The truth. And very soon, their lawyers were about to discover it too. Emma didn't waste a second. The next morning, she called an intellectual property attorney. She expected bad news. Instead, the lawyer spent nearly an hour reviewing every document. When he finally looked up, he smiled. Emma, I think your brother has a very serious problem. She frowned. What do you mean? He turned his laptop toward her. The app they're selling. It uses your original interface, your branding, your icons, your layouts. And according to this agreement, you never transferred ownership. Emma could hardly believe it. So, they can't sell it? The lawyer nodded. Not legally. Not without your permission. Emma sat there in silence. For the first time, someone was finally on her side. That same afternoon, her attorney sent a formal legal notice to Jason's company. The acquisition process stopped immediately. Every meeting was canceled. Investors demanded answers. The buyer refused to move forward until the ownership dispute was resolved. Jason called Emma 6 times. She didn't answer. Then Mom called. Then Dad. She ignored every call. Finally, Jason showed up at her apartment, the same apartment where, 2 years earlier, he had asked for her help. This time, he wasn't smiling. The moment Emma opened the door, Jason spoke. "What do you want?" Emma calmly crossed her arms. "I thought I was just helping." Jason looked away. "You know that's not what I meant." Emma stayed silent. After a few seconds, he finally said the words she had waited years to hear. "I need you." Emma almost laughed. "No, you need my signature." Jason didn't deny it. Without that signature, the $14 million deal was dead. He took a deep breath. "We can work something out." Emma looked him straight in the eyes. "I tried to work something out. You handed me a contractor agreement." Jason had no response. Just before leaving, he quietly said, "Mom and Dad want to talk." Emma answered without hesitation. "They should have talked to me before they tried to erase me." She closed the door. The next morning, her lawyer received an offer. Jason wanted to settle, fast, because every day the deal was delayed. The buyer was getting closer to walking away forever. Jason's lawyer called first, then the buyer's lawyers, then the investors. Everyone wanted the same thing, Emma's signature. Without it, the deal was worth nothing. A meeting was scheduled for the following Friday. For the first time in months, Emma walked back into the company's conference room. Nothing had changed. The same table, the same chairs, the same people. Only this time, nobody looked confident. Jason avoided eye contact. Mom looked nervous. Dad couldn't stop tapping his fingers on the table. The buyer's legal team sat quietly across from them. Emma's attorney placed a single folder on the table. He calmly spoke. "My client is willing to settle." Everyone looked relieved. Then he continued. "But only under 3 conditions." Dad immediately nodded. "Anything?" The lawyer opened the folder. Condition 1. Emma will be officially recognized as the co-creator of the app in all legal documents. Jason lowered his head. Condition 2. She will receive her full share of the acquisition. Mom's eyes widened. Dad looked ready to argue, but the buyer's attorney interrupted. "That's reasonable." The room fell silent again. Then came the final condition. Emma looked directly at her family. "I want a public apology." Nobody expected that. Jason frowned. "You can't be serious." Emma didn't even blink. "For 2 years, you let the world believe I did nothing. You can spend 2 minutes telling them the truth." Dad sighed. "Emma, do we really have to make this public?" She answered immediately. "You already made it public. You just left my name out." Nobody spoke. After nearly a minute, Jason finally nodded. "I'll do it." 3 days later, he uploaded a video to every social media account the company owned. Millions of people watched. He admitted that Emma had designed the app, built the brand, created the user experience, and deserved far more credit than she had ever received. The internet reacted instantly. People weren't angry at Emma. They were angry at Jason. Within hours, news outlets picked up the story. The comments were brutal, not because Emma fought back, but because the truth had finally come out. And for the first time, everyone knew who had really built the company. The acquisition was put on hold for almost 3 weeks. Every day, Jason called Emma, sometimes once, sometimes 10 times. She never answered. Instead, everything went through their lawyers. The buyer had made one thing very clear. If the ownership dispute wasn't resolved soon, they would walk away from the deal. Jason was running out of time. So were the investors. Finally, a second meeting was scheduled. This time, nobody argued. Nobody raised their voice. Jason looked exhausted. Their parents barely said a word. Emma's attorney placed the final agreement on the table. Jason would publicly acknowledge Emma as the co-creator of the app. Emma would receive her share of the acquisition, and every piece of intellectual property would be legally credited to its rightful owner. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Jason picked up the pen. He signed, one by one. Everyone else followed. The deal was saved. 3 days later, Jason uploaded a video to the company's official channel. Millions of people watched it. He admitted that Emma had designed the app, created the user experience, built the brand, and deserved the credit he had taken for himself. The internet exploded. People weren't celebrating Jason, they were celebrating Emma. Design communities shared her story. Tech creators praised her work. Recruiters started reaching out. For the first time in years, her name was finally attached to the work she had actually created. Emma received dozens of job offers, but she quietly turned every single one down. She already knew. Her next chapter wouldn't be spent building someone else's dream. It would be spent building her own. The acquisition officially closed 1 month later. Emma received a little over $4 million. When the money appeared in her account, she just stared at the screen. Not because she was excited, because for the first time, she realized nobody could ever take her work away again. A week later, she packed everything she owned into a small moving truck. She wasn't running away. She was finally moving toward the life she had always wanted. She relocated to Seattle, rented a small office downtown, hung one simple sign on the front door. Carter Design Studio. Her name. Not her brother's, not her family's. Hers. At first, it was just Emma. 1 desk, 1 laptop, 1 client, then 2, then 5. Within a year, her studio was designing products for startups across the country. Ironically, one of those startups became a direct competitor to Jason's former company. This time, Emma wasn't working behind the scenes. Every presentation started with the same introduction. Our lead designer and founder, Emma Carter. Every time she heard those words, she smiled. Meanwhile, Jason struggled to rebuild his reputation. Whenever he pitched a new business idea, investors asked the same question. Were you actually the person behind the last app? No matter what he answered, the doubt never disappeared. Trust, once broken, is almost impossible to earn back. Their parents tried reaching out, birthday cards, holiday messages, even handwritten letters. Emma read every single one. She appreciated the apologies, but she also remembered every time they had chosen Jason over her. One afternoon, nearly a year after everything happened, Dad called from an unknown number. Emma answered. There was a long silence. Finally, he spoke. I just wanted to tell you, I was wrong. Emma closed her eyes. She had imagined hearing those words for years. Now that they finally came, they didn't change anything. She quietly replied, I know. Another long silence followed. Then Dad said, I'm proud of you. Emma smiled. Thank you. It was the first genuine compliment he had ever given her, and somehow, it meant less than she thought it would. After they hung up, Emma looked around her office. Her team was laughing. Designers were brainstorming ideas on a whiteboard. Clients trusted her. Employees respected her. She hadn't built a successful company because someone gave her a chance. She built it because she finally gave herself one. Months later, a young designer stopped her after a tech conference. I almost signed away my work for free. But then I remembered your story. I hired a lawyer instead. Emma smiled. If my story helped even one person, then everything I went through was worth it. Sometimes, the biggest victory isn't winning the lawsuit or getting the money. It's refusing to let the people who underestimated you define your future. Emma lost her family's trust, but she found something far more valuable, her own self-worth. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's building a life so good that you never have to look back. If you enjoyed Emma's story, let me know what you would have done in her place, and I'll see you in the next Reddit story.